Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Be realistic. Words of caution from the Cannabis Licensing Authority CLA to Jamaicans who believe that the economy should have already seen a vibrant ganja industry. CLA Chairman Hyacinth Lightburn made the call as she addressed the Rotary Club of Kingston function on Monday. TVJ's Ashane Masters tells us more.
With ganja decriminalization in 2015, a medical ganja industry was touted as a new source of revenue for the government and entrepreneurs. But fast forward to 2019, several countries around the world appear to have surpassed Jamaica's efforts to create a viable ganja sector, leaving ganja proponents disappointed that the country has not fully capitalized on the product. But Chairman of the CLA, Hyacinth Lightburn, says the arguments lack proper context. She says while countries such as the United States, Israel and Canada are seeing significant economic activity from the recreational use of ganja, they do not face similar challenges as Jamaica.
So when people talk about, a lot of chatter, people expected that overnight you were going to have an enormous cannabis industry. Jamaica was going to have money falling from the sky. And, all of a sudden we were going to be great. But nobody bothered to worry about how do we ensure that every other industry in our country does not get negatively affected because of what it is that we are trying to do.
One major issue facing the ganja industry is having banks willing to conduct business with ganja investors.
So you have a situation where people unfortunately have been asked to go through an extraordinarily rigorous system to be legal, but then unfortunately they are put in a circumstance where they kind of have to slightly operate illegally because they are now sitting down with enormous amounts of cash. I had an applicant at one point who was in the process of building a 2,000 square foot facility, had not grown one plant yet. The bank of the contractor would not cash the check. So it is not as simple as the actual applicant who can't deal. The bank doesn't want to deal with anybody that the applicant is actually dealing with. So you start to go down, unfortunately, a rabbit hole that you don't know where it stops.
With that, the CLA chairman is adamant that Jamaicans should desist from idle chatter.
Can you imagine what the impact of this country would be if we lost the ability to get money remittances? How do you think the majority of the people would survive? That's enormous. And so, before you're about to jump off the cliff, look and see how far down the actual drop is. People want us to build $1 billion industry on limited resources in a matter of 6 months and say, hey, Jamaica's a rich country. It won't happen. It didn't happen. If it didn't happen for Canada, it's not going to happen for us.
Ashane Masters, TVJ News.
The Cross Primary and Junior High School is appealing to the Education Ministry to build an overhead bridge. This after a student was killed while crossing Savannah Cross Main Road in Clarendon last evening. Details in this report.
11-year-old Aldrina Rowe was a grade 6 student at Cross Primary and Junior High School. About 3 o'clock on Monday, Aldrina was heading home from school when the crash occurred. It's understood that Aldrina was crossing the Savannah Cross Main Road when she was hit by a truck. She died on the spot.
This is one of our PEP students. This was a promising child. Now, I don't know how they will view the PEP result, but in my eyes, it will never be the same. It can never be the same. We have lost a brilliant child. Someone who probably my education minister would have looked at and say, this is an example. This is somebody who have mastered the test that other persons were afraid of. How are we going to know? Will we ever know? No, we'll never know.
The driver of the truck was warned by the police pending the completion of investigations. President of the Savannah Cross Citizens Association, Gwen Tuzalin, said this is not the first child who has been killed while crossing the road. As a result, the community has been long appealing for an overhead bridge.
This like about the 4th death in 3 years or 4 years. We have brought it to the police, parish council, mayors. People have blocked the roads. and the issue has not been addressed. The driver speeding, there's no stoplight. We were told we couldn't get an overhead bridge. We would get a police officer to cross the children. It happened for a month, and then the police officers disappear. And there's no one taking responsibility to make sure that the crossing for these children, and not just children, the adults also, that it is a safe place to cross.
Therefore, the school is appealing for immediate action.
It's a never-ending story. It is sad to know that we have to use an opportunity like this, because something like this we would not refer to as an opportunity. It's a sad moment, but it's also an opportunity to reach out to those that be to beg and plead once more for an overhead bridge or something of that kind, whatever they can do. You see, we constantly hear that we're placing education at the forefront, and if we're really placing education at the forefront, all the things surrounding education, we need to put those in place.
$40 million has been donated to improve the safety and protection of wards of the state over a 2-year period. It was made by the Supreme Ventures Foundation following the death of 2 wards of the state at the Walker's Place of Safety.
The safety of wards of the state has been a major issue over the years. This follows a number of fires at these places of safety. 7 girls perished in a fire at the Armadale Juvenile Correctional Center in Alexandria, St. Anne in May 2009. Approximately 8 years later, another fire at the Walker's Place of Safety in St. Andrew led many to question if children in the care of the state are truly safe. But former State Minister in the Education and Youth Ministry, Floyd Green, says efforts are being made to adjust and prevent any recurrence of such situations at these state facilities.
Following our audits, reviews and inspections, what we want to do is to have standardized and upgraded fire safety equipment across all our residential care facilities. We want to ensure that we will upskill both staff and children at our facilities in the effective use and maintenance of safety equipment.
He says of greater focus will be government facilities which house babies and special needs children.
This will range from special signs, special alarms, special notices, especially for those facilities that have hearing and visually impaired children. Also special arrangements to assist in relation to evacuation for children who are not independently mobile.
He says a partnership will also be formed with the General Electrical Inspectorate to have the wiring of all state-run homes inspected. Mr. Green was speaking at the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between Supreme Ventures Foundation and the Child Protection and Family Services Agency recently. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Opposition spokesman on energy Philip Paulwell has disagreed with a call for the government to scrap plans for a forensic audit into the massive oil losses at Petrojam. General Secretary of the Union of Clerical, Administrative and Supervisory Employees, John Levy, said the audit would be a waste of time and money as it would require the cooperation of too many workers to steal from the refinery. He suggested the government instead hire an expert to make recommendations to reduce the oil losses. However, Mr. Paulwell says the audit would be useful even if it does not find there was any theft.
I'm in sympathy to the concerns of employees. I'm concerned about the low level of morale. But I go back to the position of the opposition, which was fundamentally we should have a forensic auditor do the work. Now, if it is established that it was not as a result of theft, let us take it from that point to getting the experts who can delve down further into these losses to be able to provide the sufficient answers. But I think to start out with, we should have the forensic audit.
The Auditor General's report on Petrojam revealed that the entity could not account for more than 500,000 barrels of oil worth more than $5 billion. Despite having no evidence to corroborate reports of contaminated gas being sold in the petroleum retail trade, the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority and the Bureau of Standards Jamaica say they will increase monitoring of the sector. That should give the public greater confidence in the integrity of fuel supplied. In a joint statement yesterday, the agency said they had no evidence of bad gas being sold to motorists. The Consumer Affairs Commission also had no reports in the last 90 days of vehicular damage as a result of contaminated fuel. The boards of the entities and other officials met yesterday to discuss the Gleaner newspaper report of bad gas being released to the market. The agency said consumers with complaints should immediately bring them to the attention of the Consumer Affairs Commission. And in sports, 11-year-old Alex Powell became the first Jamaican to win a junior championship karting title in Europe on the weekend at the South Gara International Winter Cup in Italy.
Alex Powell, who attends the Energy Course Racing Academy in Italy, started the 2019 season with a bang, getting the better of some of Europe's best junior drivers in the three-day South Gara International karting meet. Powell struggled in the opening round of qualifying, but improved over the next 3 rounds heading into the championship race, which consisted of 40 other drivers. In the championship race, Alex, who started third on the grid, quickly closed the gap on the leaders. After skillfully passing his Russian teammate Kirill Kutskov, Powell then outwitted UAE's Rashid Al-Dehari, following a fierce battle on the last lap to win by 0.6 of a second. Powell's father, John, says the achievement surpassed their expectations.
His success of so far of what he was able to achieve in 2018 with winning the WSK Championship Cup and by kicking off this year with winning the Winter Cup 2019, I think will do a lot for the region.
John says Alex's performance has sent tongues wagging about the young Jamaican.
I think it's doing tremendous, a lot of exposure for the region, especially Jamaica. You're having the commentator and people ask, you know, what do they drink, what water do they drink in Jamaica? That's making the Jamaicans so fast, both on the athletic side with track and field, and also now on the motorsport side.
New president of the Jamaica Karting Association, Neil Williams, says Powell, who's been flying the flag in Europe, did well for the nation.
All the kids, the good kids, race in Europe before they go into Formula racing and then move hopefully up to Formula One. So having that Jamaican flag at the top of our list of pure, I mean, I think they had over 40 countries represented in that series, and for Jamaica flag to be at the top of one of those classes was something very big.
Powell will next be in action in May in Hungary.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the News, Sports and Production teams, good afternoon.